All right, so let's continue from where we stopped. I know there are two people that joined today's class, Sunu and Sai. Guys, I think I sent you all the main. Sai, I don't know whether I sent you the last two classes videos. I think I sent you or not. I'm not sure. But please watch that video. I think I did send you. I am going to continue from where it is. Just want to tell everybody that I have a meeting tomorrow evening. So tomorrow I have to cancel the class. Okay, so there is no class tomorrow. I'll remember to cancel the class in the GoToWebinar. So there is no class, but we will have a class on Thursday. Unfortunately, I have a meeting that I have to attend tomorrow evening around 8 o'clock, and I don't think I'll be able to be back home by 9. So we'll cancel tomorrow's class, and then we will continue on Thursday. And you know that there is no class on Fridays and Saturdays. We will have class on Sunday. And also I wanted to let you know in advance that February 1st and 2nd, which is a Wednesday and Thursday, there is no class. Actually, a couple of my friends from Dubai is coming and I will be pretty busy with them. So I just want to take a break there on February 1st and 2nd.
Okay.
But we will have class on every day on week of 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, and we will have classes every day. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Elton, I cannot do alternate day classes. The reason is there are a lot of people who wanted to get this finished as soon as possible, and I'm doing only 4 days. Sunday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 5 days. 5 days, 10 hour, we might go a little bit. I will calculate it 10 hours, and then that way in 4 weeks I want to finish. I don't want to have this class going for like 2 months, that's not good.
Okay.
Minhas, I don't know when is the second, I might have these surprise meetings and stuff, unfortunately that is my current situation. So I cannot commit, but my plan is to finish it as soon as possible. So I'll try my best, but at the same time, I don't want to compromise on certain things. What I wanted to make sure that everybody understands what I talk. So we'll go slow and then we will pick the pace as we move forward.
Sure.
Okay, I don't know when it will be, but the expectation is to finish in 4 weeks. 4 weeks,
Okay.
2 days an hour, 5 days, 40 hours. If I can finish 40 hours, it might go more than 40 hours, I'm pretty sure. And especially a class like this, and there are quite some people who have a lot of questions, so I think the class might go a little more.
Okay.
Now, if you cannot join February 7th and 9th, I cannot do that, so please adjust your time. You will get videos, please watch. If I try to adjust timing for everybody, then I will not be able to do any class. So I hope you can understand that, okay? All right, so we built a server in Mumbai yesterday. So I'll go straight to Mumbai and start that instance. And we'll continue to do a little bit more on the EC2 stuff. We will go to EC2. Sunu, Matthew, please, can you please mute?
Sure.
All right, thanks. All right, so I just came here. This is the VM or the instance that we created. So what I wanted to talk today is to show you the properties of an instance. I know there is somebody asked a question about losing the data when you shut down an instance. So these are the things I wanted to do. Okay. Sunu, can you please mute? Okay, thanks. So so when you click on an instance, so you know how to create an instance. Before doing that, I think I want to talk a little bit about, I think there is still Karthik. Can you please mute? If you guys are not, please mute. Okay, there is a lot of noise coming from your side, and I know it is going, not only for me, it's going to be a problem for everybody. Please. Okay. Ravi Tej, I just unmuted you. Sandeep Chakka, I just unmuted. Shyam Sundar is still on phone, I think. Ali Baker, I unmuted. So when I unmute, please mute. Okay, Ali, please mute. Kader, unmute. Manish Patel. Muthu, please mute. All right, I think we have the full quorum now. Okay, guys, so how many of you know Linux here? I'm not a Linux expert. I know a little bit of Linux, but how many of you really know Linux here? If you know Linux, please, Linux or Unix or anything, please say yes or no in the chat window, please. Okay, I see quite some no's. Okay. Let's see, few A's. Most of them are saying no. Okay. Okay. So, believe me, Linux was considered not a great operating system and all probably around 7-8 years back or maybe 9 years back. But today I tell you, it is the most widely used operating system in the cloud infrastructure. I know many of you in this class wanted to do the DevOps class after this. DevOps is probably the most hottest job in the IT industry. AWS is hot too, but DevOps is, when I say DevOps is hot, means DevOps is more of like a super admin. You might get probably, if you are a real good DevOps guy. Now remember, DevOps is not that something that you can simply learn just like that and going to get $150 an hour billing. No, it is a DevOps administrator is called as a super admin. A guy who know the complete cloud infrastructure, a guy who know the application infrastructure, a guy who know the operating systems well. So that is why DevOps administrators get a lot of money, and it is very hot. DevOps is all about automating things and things like that in cloud. So DevOps admins are also sometimes called as super admins in the cloud world. Okay. So what I have seen is Linux is used heavily in the cloud industry. So it is definitely a good idea to learn Linux. Definitely Linux is a big plus. Going forward, Linux is good. If you are a Microsoft guy, that's fine, but you still need to learn a lot about PowerShell and all. There is all automation. So scripting is very, very important. I am not a big scripter. I know a little bit of it, but sometimes I feel very bad that but I think I passed that stage. I don't need to really do scripting and all with my job and all. I do more of technical designs and all. But if you are in the verge of going towards cloud and wanted to get into real technical stuff, I think scripting is very important. DevOps is all about scripting. PowerShell is Microsoft World. PowerShell is very good. Linux means you need to understand all that, other scripting tools. So I just wanted to deploy a Linux instance here. There is a little difference. So I know some of you wanted to learn Linux, some of you wanted to see Windows. Yesterday we saw how to deploy a Windows server and how to use the key pair, and we use the key pair to get the password. So today I wanted to show you how to deploy a Linux instance and how can you connect to the Linux instance. I'm not going to teach you anything in Linux, but I just wanted to show you how to deploy a Linux instance and how you can connect to the Linux instance. Okay. So we created a key pair yesterday, but that is at the time of deployment of this Mumbai server 001. That is when we created that key pair. And key pair is it has a public key and a private key. The private key is what you have to keep. Make sure you don't lose that key. If you have servers that are deployed using that key, and if you don't know the password of the administrator, then you will not be able to get in. So make sure that you have a key. You don't need to have too many keys. One key is good enough, but make sure you keep that in a secure place. So we created a key. at the time of deployment, but you don't have to do that. You can actually go to this key pair in the EC2 dashboard. Where it doesn't matter which region you are. You can go to the key pairs here, and this is the key pair that we created yesterday, and I have that file with me. If you want to create a new key pair, you can actually just give it a name. I'm going to show you something like a test, and then you can create a key pair. And this is the file, and it comes as a PEM file. You can see that that file is actually downloaded. It is right here, the file, the test.pem file. This is the key file, and this is the file that you need. So you don't need too many key files. You need only one key, and I'm going to use our class 10 key pair for all our class operations. Okay, so we have this class 10 key pair. That is what I will be using for the class. Every one of you should create a key pair and keep it with you. You don't have to create multiple key pairs. One key pair is good enough. You can also import key pairs from other accounts and all if you want. So that option is also there. If you have, you can actually import that file. I'm not going to get into that, but you can do that. So what we're going to do now is I am in, I'll go to Virginia. And let's deploy a instance in Virginia. Yesterday we just did Mumbai to show that the latency is not a problem. You can create instance there, and as you know that the pricing is a little different in all these environments. Little bit, very small. Sometimes there won't be any difference. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to deploy a Linux instance right now. So launch instance. You can pick an Amazon Linux, or you can do a Red Hat, and we discussed about it. Amazon Linux comes with all these the tools built into it. Red Hat does not come with that. So I'll do a Amazon Linux. It's a free tier available.
I have a quick question. Here you see that root device type and the virtualization type. What is that virtualization type?
Virtualization type. This is actually this is the virtualization type is the hypervisor. They just mentioned that. There is nothing you need to worry about that. There are two types. I will talk about that. It is nothing. It is just showing what is the hardware type. The VM's hardware is made out of. I can talk about that probably next class. But it is. Okay, it has nothing. It has nothing to do with it. Anything. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so let's go and deploy this instance. I will talk about HVM. What it is actually a Linux, Citrix-based virtualization hypervisor. That is what is behind it. That is what it means. There is nothing more than that. So I'm coming here. I'm going to do a T2 micro because when I deploy a Linux instance and all, you can definitely do T2 micros. You're going to get some decent performance. And why unnecessarily paying money? So I'm actually going to use a T2 micro. We can pick any one I want. So you can see that T2 micro is the only one that is free, and you can see that it is T2 instance provide a baseline performance, and I think so you can see that micro instances are eligible for AWS free usage tier. You look at the T2 Nano. T2 Nano is a new type they just created recently for containers and things like that, for Docker containers and all. It has just one CPU and 0.5 gigabyte of memory, and it is still used in certain situations in cloud by large companies. They deploy like hundreds of T2 Nanos to do parallel processing. You may be wondering why the heck, who needs a server with one CPU and 0.5 gigabyte of memory? When they have hundreds of threads to be processed, they deploy hundreds of these type of Nano instances, and they can do parallel processing to get faster output. Devinder, Docker and Docker containers is a whole new concept. It's a containerized based thing. I think I'm not going to talk about it. I can probably give a little thing. The DevOps class which Sharath takes talks a lot about Docker, and he teaches Docker a lot. But it's a container. You know what a container is. Container based. Within a VM you can run multiple application in a completely isolated way. So one server. you have a Windows server and you can run one application. Maybe you can run another application on that same server, but what happens if one application malfunctions? The other application might be affected. If one application takes a certain more CPU and more memory, the other application is going to suffer. A container is a completely isolated container where you can run applications within that. It will not impact other applications running on the same server in different containers. So you can run multiple containers on one operating system, one base operating system. Not only that, containers, once you create an application or a containerized application, it is self-contained. That means it does not need any other dependency. It does not have any other dependency. So when you create an application in a container, you can ship that application to, to Vijay or to Vinisha or to Sunil or Sunu or anybody, and they can just deploy that and it works. You don't have to look at whether there is .NET framework is there, whether there is that Java version is there. Don't have to worry about it. A container or a Docker application has everything everything has it inside the container. It has everything that it needs to run. So it's just like a self-contained application which you can use for portability. And this is a big issue right now. Enterprise companies challenge. They develop an application in a development environment, and then they move that application to QA environment, and then from QA they move it to UAT, but now it is not working. The developer says, no, everything is same. I didn't make any changes. My application is exactly same. Then why the heck it is working in QA, but why is it not working in dev, or why is it not working in prod? The reason is the environment is different. The operating system is different. Maybe that operating system where in production or in QA, it may not have the correct Java version. It may not have the correct .NET framework. It may not have a particular DLL. Now there is a problem. And this is what happens in application deployments. When you go through different environments, you see failures, and it affects the speed of deployments. It affects the smoothness of deployments, and that can be completely avoided with the help of containers. So containers is getting a lot of popularity nowadays. I don't know anything about it, but I know this is what is container is. I think I answered your question, but if you ask me anything more than Docker and Docker containers, my knowledge is zero there. Okay. Anyway, let's just get on to this Linux instance. We will deploy this T2 micro instance. So I'm clicking next, and I think some birds is singing. Unfortunately, yes, I have a 1-year-old golden retriever dog. I'm in my basement, and he's sleeping now, so he's not making any noise. And I also have a Brazilian parrot. Let me try to shut down the door one moment. Hold on. He is kind of upset because nobody is taking him. Actually, my wife or daughter is supposed to take him up. So they are making their problems. Yeah, Devinder. So I have a bird. He is making. Is it a lot of problem? Then I can. Is it okay? Is the bird is now? I close the door, but I'm sure you can still hear him. Yeah, he knows Amazon. Maybe he talks. He talks. He's 5 years old. This bird, and he talks quite a lot of things. Nothing technical though. Anyway, so we are here. We are here in the next option, and yesterday we discussed about it. I just want to show you how I can deploy 2 instances today. 2 instances. So this time it is going to create 2 instances for me. And I'm going to select one of my VPC. We will learn VPC, how to create VPCs and all. This is the default VPC, but I'm going to use one of my class 9 VPC. I'm going to use a public subnets. You can see that a VPC has multiple subnets and all. We will learn all these things later. Okay, don't worry about it. For you guys, when you create your tester account in Amazon, You will get a default VPC with the default subnet. Just use that. But that is not the real world VPC. When we learn VPC and VPC designs, you will understand what is subnet. There is public subnets, private subnets, and a lot of things are there. So I'm going to put it in a public subnet. A public subnet is a subnet that has connection to internet. That means when you deploy an instance in a public subnet, you can connect to that. So I'm going to give a public IP address, and these things all we will talk later. I think I will talk about these things also. So IAM role, and that is you can assign certain roles to a server, to an instance, but I know you don't know anything about what an IAM role. IAM role is nothing but a set of policies, a set of rules, a set of permissions that you can apply to a server in certain scenarios. It is always recommended that you attach a role. A role without any permission is fine, but you should attach a role to an instance at the time of creation, because keep this in mind, whenever you create an instance, it is best practice that you create a role and attach to that instance. Because once the instance is created, you will not be able to attach a role. The only time you can attach a role to an instance is at the time of creation. Now, what is role? How to apply permissions to role? All that things you can learn later, but I'm not going to create any role, but we will talk about roles later. Okay. Another option, shutdown behavior. You see here, by default, the shutdown behavior is stop. That means if you go and shut down an instance, the instance will be stopped. But there is also an option called shutdown behavior is terminate. Now, if this is the setting that you're doing, what happens when you shut down that instance? When you shut down that instance will be terminated. So make sure that whenever you deploy an instance, make sure that the shutdown behavior is stop. Now, you may be wondering, why do you have this kind of option? So in a cloud environment, there are hundreds of customers who just deploy a server, they get it used, and once they shut down, they're done. They wanted to finish it off and go out of it. I have a friend of mine who worked for Intune. Intune is the company that, works on TurboTax. They have like thousands of instances running in Amazon. They have thousands of developer environments. I was talking to my friend, and he said, he has a test environment for himself. When you click on a CloudFormation template, that template will go and deploy around 20 VMs that contains domain controllers, that contains DNS servers, that contains application servers. So many things will be deployed in the click of a button. And once they are done and then they shut down, it will all terminate. If you don't terminate, what happens is you end up losing a lot of money. You are paying for all the, even though your server is down, you still have to pay for IP addresses. You still have to pay for the hard disk and things like that. So certain scenarios, once you shut down, you're done, you're out. So you can set that thing. But I don't think none of us, we should not be doing that. So make sure it is the default setting. So, specify the instance behavior when an OS level shutdown is performed. So this is what, when you shut down an instance, do you want to stop that instance or do you want to terminate it? Okay. So keep that in thing. Another thing is enable termination protection. Very, very good option. I strongly recommend everybody to check this button when you deploy an instance. Protect against accidental termination. It's a web-based client. I have done my own many times, at least a couple of times I have done this mistake. When I'm busy and doing things, I have accidentally deleted instances. When you have this checkbox, protect against accidental termination, it will definitely give you certain warnings when you try to delete or when you try to terminate that instance. We'll see that. So I strongly recommend everybody to check that button so that your instance will be protected for accidental termination. We'll see what that is. But again, this will have a negative impact if you are doing a lot of automation. If you want to do automations, automatically running script and you try to delete an instance, this will probably block that. It will not allow that script to delete. In that case, you have to modify your script in such a way that, okay, if protect against accidental termination is on, go and disable that and then terminate it. You need to write another line of code in order to do that. But I would strongly recommend to put check this box when you deploy an instance. Monitoring. I told you about CloudWatch. We didn't learn about CloudWatch. We will be learning CloudWatch. CloudWatch is actually the monitoring solution for Amazon's instances. You can monitor the CPU, network, storage, and a lot of things you can monitor using. It is just like a performance monitor for Amazon instances. By default, any instance that you deploy is getting monitored, so you don't have to check this. It is getting monitored, but not to a detailed level. If you want every minute CPU utilization, then you need to go for a detailed monitoring. If you do not do it, it is still doing the monitoring, but you will not get a every minute interval. If you want your sampling rate of performance monitoring to be every minute, then you have to enable CloudWatch detail monitoring. Now remember, it will charge you additional money because when you go for a detail monitoring, Amazon has to capture a lot of data because if you want to provide that details, then it has to capture all the data. All that data will be stored in S3 bucket. So you will end up paying a lot of money for storing that much of data in S3. So unless otherwise you really don't want to troubleshoot a problem, or if there is a real need to monitor a server, then only you go for detailed monitoring. Otherwise I would say leave it blank, okay? Because your servers are getting monitored, but if you want detailed monitoring, you may want to do that. But understand, it will cost you a lot more money. Yesterday we discussed about dedicated host. I think Yogendra or somebody asked, what is a dedicated host? And we talked about multi-tenant environment. So I am deploying a server right now. It is going to run in a shared instance, but if you want a dedicated instance, you can do that here. Dedicate run on a dedicated instance or dedicated host, run a dedicated instance, and this is a new thing. I just need to find out what is a dedicated instance. This is, I think, something new. I just show that. But a dedicated host, we talked about it. We will learn a dedicated host maybe in the next 2 days. But these are the three tenancy options. Do you want in a shared environment? Do you want a dedicated host? But I just need to find out what is this dedicated instance. I think this is a new feature. I just happened to notice that. I need to find out what is a dedicated instance. If you guys can do a Googling, you will definitely find out what it is. Again, you can see that I think I got it, what it is. It means there will additional charges will apply for dedicated tenancy. So there will be something. Let's see what it is talking about. Amazon EC2 dedicated instance. Dedicated instances are Amazon EC2 instances that run in a VPC on hardware that's dedicated to a single customer. Okay, it is pretty same. Your dedicated instances are physically isolated at the host hardware level from instances that belongs to other AWS accounts. And this is exactly what we talked about a dedicated host yesterday, isn't it? We talked about dedicated host. Are you guys following what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about dedicated host yesterday, correct? What is a dedicated host? And dedicated instance is nothing but an instance running on a dedicated host. That is it, okay? So I don't think there is anything new there. So what is a dedicated host? Okay, dedicated host means this will launch a new host and create instance. That's the thing. So there is nothing different here. In this case, it will create a new dedicated host and then build instances. In this case, if you already have a dedicated host, then you can deploy an instance on that dedicated host, but both are same, okay? But we don't want to do that. I don't think anybody wants to try that at this point because you're going to end up paying quite a lot of money for that, but there is an option for that. So we're going to do a shared instance. So these are all the settings. I think everybody is getting clear on that, right?
Deepu, I have a quick question here.
Okay, go
Before
ahead.
we go. So do we always enable auto-assign public IP, or
We'll
how
talk
does
about,
it work?
right. No, that's a very good question, Yogender. We will say there are certain things, these things you will understand only when I teach subnet and VPC. You really don't want to do a public IP, but right now we don't have a VPC, we don't have a VPN. There is no other way to connect to that instance from my house or from your house. You have to have a public IP.
Okay.
Once you deploy your VPC, which is your virtual private cloud within the Amazon, and when you start deploying servers here, and this is your office, and you have a VPN connection to Amazon, then you don't need a public IP address. You will be connecting through here. But right now I am connecting through internet. You getting what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So right now from my house or from your office, I'm connecting through internet to access this host, this VM.
Okay.
But once I have a VPN or once I have a dedicated direct connect, then I don't need a public IP address. I can straight away connect to that host from here with the private IP. So that is why every instance has a private and a public IP, and we saw that, correct? But right now, I wanted it to access it from internet, and that is why I'm just picking that option. Okay?
Thank you.
Is that clear, everybody?
Deepu?
Yeah, go ahead, Devinder.
Question. So, even when you have VPC, I'm not familiar with VPC or either, but I'm just thinking logically, you still need one public IP, and then over that one public IP, you will run your VPN, because you're still connecting into the cloud from your home or your business, so you need a public IP to connect to, right?
Yes, to create the VPN you need. Yes, we will get into that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, am I breaking, or Elton is saying that he's having a problem? Elton, I think mostly it is your problem. And Elton, you attended my VMware class, and I have told you, right? If you have a problem, others can hear me well, right? Am I breaking, or?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, good. So, this is the problem also. I want to tell you guys, I have a pretty good, fast, dedicated connection here. But I'm not saying that I may not have problem. I have seen problems once or twice where I had some performance problems. But if one individual is having a problem, like for example, now Elton is saying he's having my audio is breaking. So I think, Elton, it could be mostly your connection. So check it out, okay?
So, Deepu, once again, what does it mean by when you say run on a shared hardware instance?
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, right? A multi-tenant environment where, you have a Citrix Zen server in Amazon, and they are running multiple instances on that same hardware. One is for Citibank, one is for Goldman Sachs, and one is for thing. So you're sharing the hardware. It's a multi-tenant environment. You're sharing a hardware with, it is nothing dedicated to you. This is a shared hardware where multiple customers are using it.
Deepu, I have one more question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
When you said we can just have one key pair, is that just for the learning purpose, or every time we launch a new instance, we need to have a different key pair?
No, you can always use one key pair, and once we learn more and more on the class, there will be a time where you don't need a key pair. Okay.
Okay.
Right now I'm telling you need a key pair. So just keep that for now. But as we learn more, you will come to a situation where you can deploy instances without key pairs. We'll talk about that. But right now you need a key pair. We'll talk
Okay.
about whether we need a key pair or not at a later point. Okay. But you need only one key pair. You don't need multiple key pair. If you're going to deploy a Linux instance and a Unix instance, Windows and hundreds, you can still use just one key pair.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, you don't need to create.
One quick question on that. The key pair is region specific, right? It's not across the region. Right?
No, it is not region specific. It is global.
The global? Okay.
Yes. And we see that, when we went to Mumbai, we used the same class 10 key pair,
Okay.
So in Virginia also you can use the same class 10 key pair. So it's just a service that Amazon is providing. They have something called as key management service. So the key pair actually comes from there.
Okay, got it.
All right, so this is all it is. So I think pretty much we looked at all the things. So there is a network card. If you want additional network cards, you can do that. We will talk about all these assign. See, primary IP, secondary IP. How many IP address you can put it on a network card? Can anybody tell me?
Depend how many network card you have, right?
No, I have only one network card. How many IP address I can put?
Physically, we can keep one. Virtually, we can keep as many
as we can.
What do you mean by virtually?
If it is an Windows network adapter, we can give multiple secondary IP address.
So you can actually put multiple IP addresses on a network card, okay? So I don't want to get into that. What Stanley said is correct. If you have one network card,
we call it as VIP.
Yeah, no, not VIP actually.
I think we can use some multiple IP ranges, hosted IP ranges.
You can use multiple IP addresses on a Windows server or Linux. So when you have a network card, that is called binding IP addresses, okay? So you can bind multiple IP addresses to a network card, But anyway, we will talk about this auto assign. Amazon, when you deploy an instance, the instance automatically get an IP address. So automatically getting an IP address, do you know what service actually provides that? In the TCP, IP address and all means it's all TCP IP protocol. How many of you know TCP?
DHCP.
Okay, DHCP. What is DHCP means?
Dynamic host configuration protocol.
Host configuration protocol.
Okay, what does it do?
It automatically assigns IP addresses based on the configuration of the DHCP server.
Okay. So does DHCP only gives IP address or does it give anything else?
Yeah.
Subnet mask.
All right, so guys, I just I don't want to change the focus here, but these are things you need to understand. I'll just show you. This is all for your own homework, but I thought I will definitely make you guys. I want you guys to learn these things because strong things. So let's go to. How many of you know OSI layer? If you are engineering, you are done in electronics and communication or computers, you should have definitely understand OSI layer, right? How many layers? 7 layers. Do you know about these 7 layers?
Yes.
Yeah, application.
Okay. So everybody know these layers, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So these are the 7 layers, and this is the open system interconnect. That is what open source interconnection. That is what the 7 layers. And then this is actually the base model. And then actually from there, OSI layer over the years, there are new things got developed, and that is called as a TCP IP model. TCP IP model is actually derived from OSI layer. And actually this picture will explain you what that is. So you can see that the OSI layer has 7 layers. It is nothing but certain layers are clubbed together to make this TCP/IP model. If you look at TCP/IP model, there is only 4 layers in TCP/IP model. Application layer, host to or transport layer, internet layer, and network layer. If you look at application layer, it is nothing but the combination of all these 3 layers. I just want to tell you, whether you are a developer, whether you are a programmer, if you are learning anything in computer, I think it is very, very important that you have to have a very strong understanding about OSI layer and TCP/IP layer. If you don't know that, I recommend go to Wikipedia. It has outstanding documentations there. Understand what is this layer, what each layer do, what an application layer do, what a transport layer do. Simply people saying TCP/IP, ping and DHCP, that is not really good. You need to really understand, and this is where you need to start your IT from, not by learning big cloud things, it's like shooting in the dark. You are not really understanding what is underneath, uh, so many things. So I would say start from here. If you don't know, definitely go here and learn these things. Look at here, the TCP/IP protocol suite. You might have heard about Telnet, FTP, SMTP, DNS. I know everybody was talking all these things. DHCP, it's not listed here. DHCP also comes here. It is all an application layer protocol inside the TCP/IP protocol suite. So when you have a Windows server or when you have a Linux server, that server as part of the operating system installed, it will get a TCP/IP protocol suite, and that suite has all these things. That is why you see all these things. Then the 2 major transport layer, the transmission control protocol and user datagram protocol, and what it is. One is connectionless, one is connection oriented. Try to understand that. You don't need to do it too much on this, but try to understand that. When you do ping, yesterday we did ping. When you do ping, it is actually an ICMP protocol. It is actually running on the internet layer in this layer. Then your Ethernet connections and things like that. So there is outstanding documentations about it. See here DHCP, see here application layer. It comes in the application layer. All these things, many of the things POP3, NTP, LDAP, IMAP, these are all application layer protocols. If you know ICMP, IGMP, IPsec, all these RIP, all these things come under the network layer. So things like that. So try to understand these protocols, okay, if possible. As part of TCP/IP protocol suite, you can attach multiple IP addresses. But what I was trying to talk about is, an DHCP is a dynamic host configuration protocol. It is a service that comes as part of, it's a protocol that comes as part of the application layer or the TCP/IP model. It is a lot of people, when they say about DHCP, they say, oh, DHCP gives IP address. But that is not true. DHCP can give a lot more other things. There is something called as DHCP scope options when you configure DHCP. Now, you don't have to know all those things, but I just want to tell you, when you learn these things, you may think, why the heck I need to know this? But, I'm just telling, DHCP can give many other things. It can give you DNS server, it can give you your gateway, it can give you a subnet mask, it can give you your Pixie boot server, your TFTP server. A lot of information can be delivered using DHCP. And all I said, all this is because in Amazon, when you deploy an instance, the instance gets its IP address, the instance gets its subnet mask, the instance gets its DNS server, everything from a DHCP service. So Amazon has a DHCP service. That is why auto assign here. It will get an IP address automatically, and that automatically means it is coming from a DHCP service that is provided by Amazon. You don't have to do anything. Amazon has a DHCP service in their environment, and they get you that form. But if you want to give your own IP address, sure, you can actually go and put your IP address here and configure it also. But it is highly recommended not to use static IP addresses in Amazon. Leave it to Amazon. Let them manage it. That is the best way to do it. And we will talk about IP addresses, different types, different scenarios. We'll talk about all that later. But I'm just wanted to give you certain things. It all these you will understand all that things when we learn about subnets and things like that. Okay. Now one more thing. If you have a network card, a lot of people think that you can only put one IP addresses. That is not correct. You can put multiple IP addresses, or it's not putting, the word is called binding. You can bind multiple IP addresses on a single network card. Okay. It's not VIP, okay, Stanley. So it is not VIP. It is physical IP addresses you can attach to one network card. All right, so we'll do that. Click next. You know, it's a Linux instance. It just only has an 8 gig drive. That's more than enough. You can select a different type of storage. We will talk about the storages later, but these are the different type of EBS volumes. Delete on termination, I think something we discussed about. When I terminate this instance, do you want this volume to be deleted? Do you want this hard disk to be deleted, or do you want to keep it? It is your choice. By default, that option is delete on termination. That means when you delete that instance, when you delete that VM, it will delete this hard disk also. So you will lose everything. Okay. All right, so that's good. I wanted to talk something about there. Okay. We'll talk about that. That is the first question that somebody asked me, you know, what happens losing the data. I will talk about that in a minute. So let me get here. I'm not going to give any name here. I'm going to configure. So we can give a name, Linux servers. No, we can do that. Security group. You know, in Linux servers, can you do an RDP to a Linux server?
No, you have to do SSH.
Okay. You cannot do RDP. RDP is remote desktop protocol. It's a protocol that is only be supported by Microsoft Windows servers. You cannot RDP to a Linux instance. You can only connect SSH or a secure shell, and there are other options also to connect to a Linux servers. And the port number is for SSH is 22. It's a well-known port. Since that is another thing. There is something called as well-known TCP IP ports. If I ask a question, can anybody answer this? You know, what is the port number for HTTP protocol? And this is all TCP IP protocol suite, okay? In that TCP IP protocol suite, I showed you all the things that I'm asking is there. What is the port number for HTTP?
81.
8080.
No, it is 80. Okay, not that
80.
it is 80. You know, you can if you go for an interview and if you say 8080 or 81 and something, you know, that's the end of the thing. Even if you know the entire Amazon, they're going to kick you out. Okay, so please go and learn. Just go to Google. Okay, this is all you need to do. Go to Google and type, you know, well-known TCP IP ports. And then you will get all these things, you know, list of TCP and UDP ports. And then at least, you know, there are so many ports are here. At least you don't need to learn all these things, but, you know, there are some well-known ports are there. You need to understand, you know. So we talked about 80, you know, HTTP, 53, DNS. Okay. 21 for FTP, 22 for SSH, you know, POP3 110, 25 for SMTP. So there are quite some well-known ports, you know, 443 for SSH, 689 for LDAPs, things like that. So there are some well-known ports. I would say at least you learn at least 10 to 15 ports. Well-known ports. So you can just type well-known TCP IP ports. You know, you need to definitely know about LDAP port. You need to know SSH port. You need to know RDP port. You need to know DNS. You need to know HTTP, HTTPS, SSH, POP3, SMTP. These are all well-known ports that are commonly used in the IT industry. So very important. And, you know, without knowing that, you cannot configure your firewalls. So please spend some time, you know, half an hour is more than enough. Go and find out that ports, okay, and learn that. So here it is the SSH port. I'm also wanted to add a ping. We wanted to test this server, so I'm going to put ICMP to test it. I'm going to say anywhere. We'll talk about what is the 0.0.0 and things like that. We'll talk all that when we learn thing. If I start talking about it, that will take me to another totally different world. So I'm not going to do that. But right now, let's just do anywhere. That means basically 0.0.0/0 means anywhere. That means you can connect from anywhere to that. So I'm allowing anybody to connect to my new Linux instance. They can SSH using port number 22, and you can also ping to that server. Okay.
So ICMP is for ping, Deepu?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we are done here. Almost is ready. Now, what do you need in order to do this? Hold on one second, guys. Let me just stop this. All right, so I'm going to launch this. When you launch it, you need a key pair, correct? You definitely need a key pair. So I'm going to say choose an existing key pair, and we have to choose our class 10 key pair. Where is our class 10 key pair? All right, so that is a good point actually. You know, Muthu, you said is correct, okay? I was wrong. That's a good thing. This is how I learned some stuff. You see, I don't see key
Isn't
class
like
10.
my key pair like class 10?
Where is it?
Like right below class 9?
No. We created a
Okay.
class 10 key pair. So I think key pairs are region specific.
Because your region is not changing to global. That's why I asked this question. It is still saying Virginia when you get the TP.
Right. I think you're right. Okay, thanks. That's a good thing. I was thinking that always key pair, you know, it was thing. That's interesting. Okay. All right, so that means we have to create a new key pair. So create a new key pair. So let's call it as class.
Can we have a same name so we won't get confused?
I think we can do that. I'm going to create a different name, class 10 VA Virginia key pair. Okay, so I have to download that key pair. So I'll copy that key pair. I wanted to put it, I'm putting everything in this AWS folder. So we have this class 10 key pair is there. This is the one that we created yesterday. Now I'm putting class 10 VA key pair. That's a Virginia key pair, okay? And launch instance. So how many instances are getting launched now?
2.
You see that it is launching 2 instances, right? So now if you go here and you click on EC2, you will see that 2 new instances are getting launched, and they both have this Linux instance. We can change the name. This is just a tag, and it is getting launched. It is T2 Micro. They both are getting deployed in US East. Things like that. So now the interesting thing, how do you connect to a Linux instance?
Using Putty.
How many of you know Putty? If you know Putty, just say yes, please, here. If you know what is Putty.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Putty is actually a SSH client. You know, you can download. There are different tools to connect. So you can easily go to Google and download Putty. It is, you know, it's a Putty download. Putty also has something called as Puttygen. There is, I'm going to talk about that now. So you need Putty to connect to Linux instances. So I have a Putty here on my desktop here. This is Putty. So you can start Putty here, and then you can connect to this instance once you know the IP address of the Linux instance you want to connect. But it is not as simple as that, and that is why I wanted to show this Linux thing. We will look into that in a minute. So these instances are coming up, and let us see. My browser don't support it, but I think there is also a browser-based support to connect to Linux, but it never worked for me. But you guys can still try that. But I just wanted to show you how to connect through Putty. So here, let's go to Google. Simple words, how to connect to a Linux instance in AWS Bird. Connecting to your Linux instance using SSH, AWS documentation. If you go here, that will explain you how to connect to a Linux instance in AWS. So it is little different, and I told you it is little different. Every Linux instance in Amazon has this is not the right document. Okay. We'll find out the correct. Every Linux instance has a user called EC2 user. In Linux servers, the root is the super user, correct? Root. In Amazon Linux, in all these, whether it is Red Hat or anything, the root is actually called as EC2 user. Okay. So what you need to do is you just go here in Google and how to connect to a AWS Linux instance using Putty. This is what I want to show you. There is a clear documentation about that, how to do that. There is also a video on that. So you just connecting to your Linux instance from Windows using Putty. This is what we want to do. So there is a couple of steps we need to know. It's not very difficult. I will show you and you will understand what it is. So you need to use Putty, and then you can see here the user EC2 user at the IP address or the DNS name of your instance, and the port number is 22. That is how you need to connect. Okay. So this is Putty, but before doing that, we have to do a couple of things one time. You don't need to do it all the time, but one time you need to do certain things. When you want to get you don't know the password for that. So we have these two instances here. Let us just rename them as Linux 01. Once you change it, you have to check this box, okay? And then we'll do this as Linux 02. So we have two Linux instances. Let's go and look at this first instance. You can see that the instance has a public IP address. It has a private IP address. So I told you, see, it has only one network card, but it has two IP addresses. So you can bind multiple IP addresses to a single network card, and that is exactly what they have done. So if you come here to the ETH0, this is the network card. There's only one network card. You click on that network card, you can see that that network card. We'll talk about this. This is the actual network card. This is the network card, ENI, Elastic Network Interface. This is the actual network card. That network card is having a private IP address, and it also has a public IP address. You can even attach more IP address to it if you want to, okay, that I said. But anyway, right now, Amazon, when you create an instance, it gets a public IP address and a private IP address. We'll talk about that a little later, but right now you just understand you get a public IP address. So now I know the IP address. It is not only the IP address, you can also use this DNS name. Who gives this DNS name? Who gives this IP address to this instance? Who is giving all these details?
The DHCP server.
Correct. The DHCP service in Amazon is giving that. So if you take this, actually, you should be able to ping that. You can also ping that IP. Can anybody ping this IP address? You should be able to. Let me see. I can ping that complete DNS name. You should be able to ping. And it is pinging because we opened the port for ICMP, correct? So this is a fully qualified domain name for that server. You can use that fully name, or I can use the IP address, 54.209.26.81. See, that is the IP address. So you can use that public DNS name because Amazon automatically creates that. It registers to the DNS and you are able to release it. Now, DNS. What is DNS?
Domain name system.
This is domain name system, probably one of the most beautiful and one of the most powerful features of the TCP/IP protocol suite. This itself is a course if you really want to learn deep into DNS. DNS is very, very powerful and very complex. Amazon has a DNS service itself called, what's the port number for DNS?
53.
53. And Amazon came up with this beautiful name for their DNS service. It's called as Route 53. So Amazon has a DNS service. It is called Route 53. We will learn Route 53 at a later point. But what I really want to tell you is how the DNS name resolution works. When you type www.yahoo.com and in the next second you get that website, but there is a lot of things happens at the back end in order to get you that yahoo.com website. That is called name resolution. Your computer has to go through a set of things to get that site. It is not that simple. That is where your DNS servers come into picture. That is where your host files come into picture. That is where your cache come into picture. A lot of things. So if time permits, next class I will definitely talk a little bit about DNS. Very, very interesting topic. I think that is another important thing everybody should understand. When you type, in your browser, I'm just going here and just I'm going to type, something, a site called, I don't know, give me a site name, somebody, which you think that I never accessed. Anybody? Can anybody type a site name that you think I never accessed? Just put it. If anybody from Hyderabad or somebody type a Telugu site, are you sure I don't go there? Just type a name on the chat window. Okay. See, somebody typed. Okay, Krishna thing. So here, I am in my computer. Okay, I think I'll talk about this a little bit. This is another important thing you need to understand. krishns.com. Believe me, I never been to this site. I'm on my browser and I'm going to type enter and 1 2 3. I think I didn't get it. I think it is www, right? Okay, Muthu has put something, springpeople.com. Is it your site? Okay, let's go there.
It's some other site.
Okay, springpeople.com. Let's see, I'll get that. Okay, www.springpeople.com. See, I got the site. I don't know what it is. It is something. How did I get this site? Can anybody tell me how did my computer really got this website so fast?
Host makes a request to this DNS server, and the DNS server converts it resolves the IP address with the domain name. I mean, that's on the...
Okay. Anybody else?
So when we enter the address, it will go to the nearest IP provider.
Mm-hmm.
And from there it will route to the
no, Stanley, I'm very disappointed. I expected definitely that answer from you. And Elton, I think I have taught you this in my VMware class, and you're still talking all you are telling something, but if you're going for an interview and if you're sitting in front of me, you're done. I won't even consider it. Can anybody tell me the real steps involved in DNS, the domain names? When I type let's forget about Amazon and all first, guys. Let's understand these basic concepts first. When I type www.springpeople.com, I get this website in 3 seconds. How does my computer in Philadelphia understand this site? What are the things happen in the back end? That is what I want to know. Can anybody tell me the step-by-step process my Windows 10 PC has done in order to provide me that website?
Maybe like
Trace route should show the whole.
One person at a time, please. Jacob, you want to talk? You want to give it a try?
No. So maybe if you do a trace route, it should show all the hops that it took to get there.
Okay, traceroute is another protocol of the TCP/IP suite, which is actually a troubleshooting tool, but that is not the thing why I'm asking. Anybody know what is the process of how does a name resolution happens? All right, I think I don't want to take time, but let me quickly tell you. But these are things that I mean you don't know, but that's fine. But at least I think I should explain to you guys this. So let me explain. So let's talk or learn some DNS here. Time is running, but so I have a computer. This is my Windows XP computer or Windows 7 computer. I open up a browser and I type www.springfield.com or whatever it is. When I do that, when I type the browser, the computer do couple of things. This computer is connected to internet, correct? Internet, and then it is through my ISP, it is connected to internet and so on. Let's not worry about that. Now the domain hierarchy, right? There is something called as there is a dot. Any domain name, if you say www.google.com, it is not www.google.com. It is actually www.google.com dot. There is a dot at the end. That is called as the root. And then this is called the root domain. And then something called as top level domains. .com is a top level domain. .org is a top level domain, and so on. Then you can have child domains or secondary domain. There is a lot of things. If you want, you can go to Sharat's. If you go to Sharat's /root.in, you can learn. He's a real good DNS expert, and his site has outstanding blogs about things /root.in. If you want, please go to /root.in and understand these things. So www. Microsoft, I'm just putting Microsoft dot. So www is actually the name of the server. Microsoft is actually called as a secondary domain, and then the root domain, and then the thing. So this is how the domain names works. Okay. So Springfield.com is again, the .com site is there, .com domain is there. Under the .com, there is Springfield, whatever. Who gave me that Springfield, I'm just typing here, and then under that www. So www is the server where that website is running. It may be in Singapore. It has a parent domain called as Springfield, which is actually a parent child of .com. So this is how the domain names works. Okay, the domain hierarchy works. But that is not my point. My point is, how does my computer got that? Actually, the website names, yahoo.com, google.com or springfield.com and all is human friendly names, but the computers don't understand those names. They all work on IP addresses. In fact, if you take one more step back, they actually work on MAC addresses. Let's not get into that, but at least understand an IP address is there behind every domain name. So actually my computer, this guy wanted to know what is the IP address of that website, springfield.com. But when I type for the first time in my life in my computer never know that. So first thing what the computer does is, every computer has a memory, right? Memory, RAM, correct? That memory, there is a part of the memory, I'm just drawing the memory here. There is some part of the memory which is called as a cache. All the recently accessed websites, all the recently accessed domain names will be stored in this cache. Now, How long that will be stored and all is determined by a terminology called TTL, time to live. A DNS server actually gives TTL. When you get an IP address or when you get a name, the DNS server is giving the TTL. It says, okay, the TTL for that is 30 minutes. That means once you access springfield.com, that IP address for Springfield, I'm just putting it like that, okay, springfield.com, I'm just putting as com, is, let's say the IP address is 10.10.10.10. That is the IP address. So when my server got that IP address, it is stored in the cache. So in the cache, there is 10.10.10. It will remain in the cache. It will remain in the memory for how long? How much is my TTL? If the TTL is 30 seconds, 30 minutes, it will remain in the memory for 30 minutes. But there is option. If you reboot your server, everything, because memory is volatile. You know, when you reboot the server, everything in the memory will go. If you don't reboot, it will stay there for quite some time. Normally, what is your TTL? Sometimes the TTL is 2 hours, sometimes it can be a day, sometimes it can be even 1 minute. In certain high-end geo clusters and all, you can set the TTL to a smaller values. So first thing the computer does is, when you typed www.springfield.com, the computer will first go and check where. That is the step number 1. It will go here. I'm going to put this step number 1. It will go and check in the memory, hey, in my cache, do I have a reference for springfield.com? All the computer need is the IP address. It is going to check in the cache and see, is there an entry for springfield.com? Is there in the thing? Is it there or not? At that point, now it is not there, but first time when I do it, will it be there in the cache or not?
No.
It won't be there in the cache, correct? So that is step number 1. Now this all happens in milliseconds, okay? You got to understand that. It all happens in milliseconds. This is called not DNS cache. Yeah, this can be called as DNS cache, Devinder. You know, it's a local cache. I don't call it as a DNS cache. DNS server itself has a cache, but I will call it as a local cache. You can flush it by using a command called ipconfig/flush DNS. It will flush that thing out. Anyway, that's all little advanced, so let's not do that. So this is the first step every computer do. Time is running. Okay, second thing, okay, it didn't find it. So second thing it does, can anybody tell me what it does? Stanley, what is step number 2 the computer do?
So
if
there's some not on the cache, then it will go to the IP provider, and from there.
Okay, stop. No, that's enough. That is not correct.
No, it will go. It will check in the host file.
That is correct. Every Windows server or every Linux server, there is a file called host file. And that file in a Windows server, everybody who knows Windows administrator should know that in the sleep also. Even in the sleep, somebody wake you up and ask you what is a host file, you need to know. It is in C, program files, system32, program files,
Windows.
C,
Windows system32.
Windows system32. First time in my life I missed that, okay. Drivers,
etc.
There's a folder called drivers. Hold on. There's a folder called drivers. You don't need to worry about it, okay. Those who don't know this thing, you don't need to worry about it. I'm just showing something. There's a drivers folder, and there's a folder called etc, and there is a file called host file. And there is also lm host file. You don't need to do that, but let's just open that file in a notepad and see what it looks like. So this is a host file looks like. It will have always an IP address to domain name mapping. You can put these things in the thing. This is how when you really troubleshoot problems in companies and all, when you have applications deployed and all, this is the place where we normally people put the values to test their website and all. So it will go and check. I'm not going to get into the details here, but at least, you know, when somebody asks you, you should say that. So the second thing the computer does is it will go to the local host file and you know the location of the host file, C, Windows, System32, drivers, etc. There is a file called host file. It will go and check that file. Hey, do I have an entry for springfield.com there? Is it there? It is not there. Correct? My computer don't have it there. So now the computer, what it does is, it does not know. It knows that it is not in the cache. It is not in the host file. Now the computer will make a decision. Okay, now I need to ask a DNS server. DNS server is meant to provide these details. DNS server, domain name service. A DNS server is supposed to give me that. If I don't have these two places, then my only choice is to talk to the DNS server. Every computer, when you configure it, you can also do that. If you go to your command prompt of your computer, everybody, whether it is Apple or Mac or anything, you take a command prompt and you type a command called ipconfig/all. You will see entries for DNS servers. Here it is. You can see DNS server. See, my DNS server is 10.10.10.1. So that is my this is given by the DHCP server, but every server, every computer, you guys look at it, you will see mostly your Comcast server or something will be listed there. It will be asking that DNS server. So it will go and look at the DNS server and it will ask the DNS server. So probably that is a DNS server in Comcast sitting here in New York City. A DNS server hosted or owned by DNS server. If your company is having your own thing, but in my house I don't have a DNS server. I do have, but you know, in your case, companies, your house, you may not have a DNS server. So what this computer do is, the third request is it will go to the DNS server. That is step number 3. And it will ask the DNS server, hey, do you know who is springfield.com? There is no guarantee that the DNS server in Philadelphia or DNS server in Atlantic City know about springfield.com, which is a site in Singapore or which is a site in North India. Maybe a site that is created now. So what this DNS server knows, if it knows, it will return back that IP address. All my computer need is the IP address to go there. If it is not there, this DNS server, in DNS server, that is why I said DNS server is a big topic. It has something called as forwarders. It will forward that request to root level domains. So there is something called as root hint servers and all, you know, it will ask the upper level DNS server. Maybe that's a DNS server in New York City. Hey, do you know who is this guy? So if this guy say, oh yeah, I know, because he may be knowing because Davinder was in New York City and he did that site yesterday, so he has cached that value. He has it in his cache. You say, okay, I know it is because I have this value. Somebody did this yesterday. I got it from somebody, but I am keeping it in my cache. So he gives that value to this guy. Then he gives that value to this guy. This guy will store that in the cache. And now I am getting springfield.com. So that's how DNS works. I hope you got some idea. There is still a lot of things I cut in between because there is no time. But I hope you guys got some idea how a computer name resolution works in computer. So, all right. That's not Amazon, but that is how it is. All right. So let's get back onto our class topic here. So we have these 2 servers that is deployed. Where is it? Did I close? Yeah, I think I closed Amazon. Hold on. All right, so we have these 2 servers that is running in Virginia. They are running 2 instances they are running. Now, I know the IP address of this server, or I know the DNS name of the server. I want to connect to it. So in order to connect to it, we see that this server is also attached with a key pair. So here is the most important thing I wanted to tell you when you talk about Linux instances. To connect to Linux instances, you cannot use a PEM key. either the keypair.pem, right? You remember we created this keypair.pem file. You know, this PEM file will not work, unfortunately. You need to convert this key into a different format called as PPK file. A PPK, you need to convert that file to a PPK file. Okay? Now I'm going to show you, this is a one-time thing you need to do. I want to show you how to create a PPK file. To create a PPK file, now this is all in the documentation. I will put this, all these steps are starting a Putty session, how to create all these things are mentioned here. I will put it in the chat window here, so please make a note of that link. I'll keep doing this, okay, the links that I go. So keep that link. That link has all the information about how to configure Putty. So what you need is, in order to do Putty, you need something called as a tool called Puttygen. Okay, Puttygen is a tool that you can convert a PEM key to a PPK file. Okay. So what we need to do is, you load an existing private key file. I'm going to my class documents, AWS Cloud, and let's take our PEM file, class 10 VA keypair.pem file, and just make it as a private key, save private key. So it will convert it as a PK file. So I'm going to call it as class 10 VA keypair.ppk. So I'm converting into a PPK file. That's all. All you need to do is this. Just a one-time thing. Just do that and do this. I think I created already this file. Okay. So use that Puttygen. It is, again, it's a free download. Please go ahead and download that Puttygen, and then you can convert your PEM key to a PPK file. That's the first step you need to do. Now you need to start Putty. Start the Putty. Okay. We are there. And then you type the username ec2-user, that is the root user, at, you can put the full domain name, or you can put the IP address of the server, which is this. I'm going to put the IP address instead of putting the domain name. And you can say connect, but that's not enough. There is an option where you need to pass your key pair. So what you need to do is, once you do that, unfortunately guys, this is what you need to do for Linux, okay? But there's other ways. So you go here, you come to this SSH thing, you come to the oath key here. In the oath, you look at it. I mean, you do one-time practice, you will understand, okay? You come to the oath key and you browse and put your class 10 key pair PPK file, not the PEM key. You need a PPK file. Open, and now you say open, and you will be connected to the Linux instance. See here, I connected to the Linux instance. Now this is a Linux instance in Amazon. You can do that here. You can do the ls command. Those who know is Linux, you know how to do it, right? Is that clear? So this is Linux, Amazon Linux AMI. Is that clear for everybody, or did I confuse you guys? Now one more thing, I'll do this one more time if you are not clear, okay? Please tell me, because if you have to connect to Linux instance, there are a couple of steps you need to do. I'm just going to disconnect here. There is, if your browser support, if you use Firefox or something, if you have a Linux instance, there is an option called connect here. When you start that, there is something called, you can use a standalone SSH client, and all the details are here. There is also a Java SSH client which will be opened from the browser itself. Try that. My Chrome never worked. There is something called as NP API decryption on Chrome. I need to go and disable. I tried a couple of times. It never worked for me. I could actually open a case with Amazon to fix that, but I never tried that. See, Chrome no longer supports plugins using NP API. This is probably, it may have some bugs, and also that's why most of the browsers don't support that. But the correct way to connect to a Linux instance is using a standalone SSH client like Putty. So you download the you open an SSH client, you can say connect using Putty, and then you use your username like EC2 user, this thing, and then you can do that. So you need to convert that to a PEM key to a PPK file. Let me tell this one more time. I know I don't want to confuse you guys here. Or can somebody tell me, how do you connect to a Linux instance? I think I explained this, but can somebody tell me? I know we changed the topic in between to learn some DNS, but how do you connect to a Linux instance? So you all know how to deploy a Linux instance. Now once you deploy it, you want to connect to the Linux instance. How do we do that? Anybody, please? We have it here. So it is here in Linux does not, I will put it, Linux does not support PEM key. So first thing we need to do is, this is a one-time thing, you have to convert your PEM key to a PPK file. To convert your private key, you have to use Puttygen, and you know what is Puttygen, and use the Puttygen and then convert that into a PPK file. So you have it. Now that I have done already, I never have to do that again. It's a one-time thing, okay? Once you have that, then you connect start your Putty, put your EC2 user at your IP address or the DNS name. And one more thing you need to do is you come to the auth key here and point it to your PPK file, okay? So let's do that one more time for the next server. And this server, I'm going to this time trying to go, instead of using the IP address, I'm going to use this DNS name, okay? So I'm going to come here to the Putty. I'm going to put EC2-user at the DNS name. Then I will come to the SSH here. I'll click on the auth here. I'll click on the browse here, and I will turn the PPK file, open, and then say open. That's it. And say connect. Connected to the instance. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's how you connect to Linux instances. I hope you all understand. It is important that you need to know Linux and Windows to connect, and this is very important, okay, because otherwise you cannot do that. So once you have a Linux instance, then you can do whatever you want. You want to learn Linux, you could do that. Now Linux itself is a whole different beast, but you can do that. Cool. 10:35. Okay, I think we have still a little more time. Any questions here, anybody? I see a lot of people are quiet here, and I don't see much questions coming up in the chat window. Are you all understanding what I'm talking? Because ladies.
Yeah, Deepu, I have the same question actually. When you stop that particular instance and you start it up again, the public IP address changes, right? The DNS also changes.
Yes. It does. I mean, Amazon is not saying it changes. It can change. I haven't started getting into those topics. These are all things you need to understand when an IP change. So a DHCP IP. Let's talk about. That's a good question. Who asked that question?
Parikh.
Parikh. Okay. So what is DHCP? DHCP is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Shyam Sundar, I will unmute you. Okay, hold on one second. Yep. All right. So Shyam, hold on with your question. Let me answer this. So DHCP means, now just like DNS, DHCP has lots of properties. When a DHCP server gives your computer an IP address, it has something called as a lease period. It is not called as TTL. In a DNS record, we call it as TTL, time to live. But in a DHCP world, when a DHCP server gives an IP address to a particular computer, laptop or a desktop, all your mobile phones, everything gets a DHCP IP. You have Wi-Fi on your phone. Go to your properties, you are getting a DHCP IP from your Wi-Fi router. Your Wi-Fi router in your home is a DHCP server. Your mobile phone, your iPhone, your Android phone is a DHCP client. It gets an IP address from your Wi-Fi router. That IP address is not permanent. That IP will change in many cases. So there is something called as a lease time. When an IP address is given to a particular computer, after the lease time expires, the IP will change. So if your computer is continuously running, if your computer is powered on and running all the time, that IP will never change. But if you power off your computer, what happens is the DHCP server will take that IP and give it to somebody else, because there are a lot of people asking for IP address to the DHCP. Say, hey, I need an IP, I need an IP. And when it sees that, okay, Parrot is done with using, it will give that IP address to somebody. And when you power on, you get another IP address. So DHCP process itself is a very interesting topic. How, if you can go to Google and do a search how DHCP works, try to understand that. DHCP, when a computer comes up, it boots. During the boot process, it do a DHCP broadcast message to the network saying, hey guys, my name is this, I need an IP address. Is there any DHCP server here? If there is any DHCP server in that network, that DHCP server will respond back with a message saying that, okay, I am here, I can give you an IP address. Do you want it? Then the computer says, okay, I need it, can you give me? And then it gives. So there is a lot of handshake happens in a network. We all think that it all comes automatically. No, there in reality, when computers communicate in a network, they do a lot of things. So every time when a computer, your laptop, your mobile phone, when it starts, it sends a broadcast message in your network saying, hey, I need an IP address. When that message is being received by a DHCP server in your house, it is your router, wireless router. The wireless router not going to give immediately. It sends a message back to the mobile phone or to your laptop saying that, hey, I have an IP address, I can give you, do you want it? It's not going to give simply. Then the computer should reply back and say, okay, I need one. Then the router will give it to say, okay, I will give you one, but it is for only 2 hours. But in 2 hours, if you're still running, there is some lease renewal and all, just like when you rent a house, so you can renew the lease, right? Before your lease expires, you can renew it for another 1 year. Same concept is there for DHCP also. At 75% or 50%, there is a lease renewal option is there. So that is why I said, if a computer is running continuously, never been powered off, even though it is a DHCP IP, that IP will never change. But if you power off, then the DHCP server can give. I'm not saying will, it can give. Sometimes you may get the same IP back, sometimes not. Okay, so that is the same thing that happens in Amazon. When your instance is having a public IP address, just like what we are seeing, this public IP address is what I'm talking about. This IP address, if I power off this instance and power on, it can change, it cannot change. There is no guarantee that this IP will change or remain same. There is a possibility that it can change. But many times I have seen if you power it off and power it on immediately, it will remain same. Now look at this private IP address. Even this private IP address, this is a little different in the real world DHCP. This private IP address is also given by the DHCP server in Amazon. But the beauty here is, throughout the life of this instance, okay, throughout the life of this instance, whether you power it on or power it off, this IP will never change in Amazon world, even though it is a DHCP assigned private IP. This IP address will never change, but a public IP will change. Now,
So in that case, sorry, in that case, can I connect through my private IP instead of the public IP when I'm trying to SSH?
no, you cannot until you have a VPN connection or a direct connect. Right now you cannot because this private IP is not exposed to the public. So you need a public IP address. But once we learn VPC and once we learn VPN, you can definitely connect SSH to this IP address. Right now you cannot. Now here is the thing I want to talk about. So this is a public IP address which is given by Amazon, which is a DHCP assigned public IP. Now Parrot's concern is, what the heck, every time I power off, tomorrow morning my IP changes. Now I need to find out the IP address, isn't it? That is your problem, correct, Parrot?
Yes, that's correct.
That's a big problem. If you have a big problem, then do one thing, just spend $1, go to Elastic IP address and say allocate a new IP address. Amazon will immediately create a new public IP address for you. See, it is created a new IP address. It will cost you around $1 for a month, and we saw that yesterday. And you created a public IP address now. This is a static. This is called as Elastic IP address. This is also a public address, but it is a static IP address. This IP address will never change until if you keep it for 10 years, you will have this IP address. Now what I want to do is, you go back to your instance, you go to your Linux instance, right click here, go to the instance setting, and networking, and where is that option, man? Okay, you don't need to do that. That's not the way to do it. I was looking here. So you go to the Elastic IP address, right click here, associate that with your instance name, and I'm going to say Linux 1. I'm attaching that IP address to my Linux server's network card and say associate, and now go back and look at that instance, your instance. It will have this new IP address. The public address is now 34. The other DHCP IP is gone, this IP. Okay, now let's go and connect to this instance. Where is Putty? Okay, so we'll do here. We'll take this here. EC2-user at the new IP address, and then SSH auth, browse, and open. Am I connected? So Parrot, this IP will never change. You go and shut down the server, you go and power on the server, this will never change. But remember, this IP you have to pay $1 or something. You go to find out the pricing. I think it's $1 a month for that, and that is in your Elastic. This is like a price. You should not be doing this for all the servers, but yes, if you want to put a web server and you want to expose your company's website to internet, you have to have a public. We will learn this more when we learn about load balancers and all. When you want to expose your servers to the outside world, and you have a website called www.davinder.com, and you want to create a DNS entry in GoDaddy or somewhere. You went to GoDaddy and say, hey, you know what, my server name is my website name is www.davinder.com and the IP address is ABCD. But if you power off the server and the IP changes, will your domain name ever works? No. So if you want to have a domain name, you have to have a static IP address. You want to have a public IP address which is static. So that is where you need to use this. So this is a public static IP address which will never ever change as long as you keep it. But remember one thing, you can come here and disassociate it, and then you can release that IP address so that it will go away. Once you release that IP address, there is very, very, very little chance that you will ever get this IP address back. So once you get an IP address, I would say keep it. Okay, so everybody clear on this? So Elastic IP and public IP. Yeah, one minute, Yogender. Before Yogender, I think Shyam has a question. Okay, so I want everybody to understand what is a public IP address in Amazon. It is a DHCP assigned public IP address. It is like a temporary thing. When you power off, it can go. It may not go. We don't have any guarantee on that. Amazon is not giving any guarantee for that. It might go, it might not go. The instance also get a private IP address, which is again from a DHCP, but that IP address will never change even if you power off or power on. So that is the 2 IP address. Now I'm talking about a third IP address, which is called as elastic IP address, which is a public IP address which you have to buy on a per IP basis, and you can associate that with an instance. That IP will never change. It is like a static IP address. Okay. I hope everybody is clear on that. Now, Shyam, go ahead with your question, Shyam.
Actually, my question is not related to the IP address. Actually, I had a question while creating the instance. So my question was, is there any way to edit or change the shutdown behavior after launching an instance? Because if suppose, while creating the instance, I thought as soon as my work is done, let me terminate the instance. But later, my requirement came as, okay, let me continue the instance for some more days. So
I don't
is
think,
there any way we can change?
I don't know. I think you have to Google, man. I don't think there is. I think it is possible. Maybe. Let's see. So guys, everybody understand this question. His question is, Shyam created an instance. Unfortunately, during the instance creation, he selected the option called terminate during shutdown. So now the problem is, if he shut down that instance, it is going to terminate, but he don't want that. So he's saying, is there any way I can change it? I'm not sure, but let's see. Okay. So right click, instance settings. The termination protection is not the thing. Change shutdown behavior. You can change it here, Shyam. Change shutdown behavior. Right now, the shutdown behavior is terminate. You can change that to stop. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Is it clear for everybody? You understand? That's a good question. So he had this question, he created with thing, you know, what will I do? But so you can come here and change the instance setting. All right, so I think time is running out, guys. So I just want to show you something else. When we created these Linux instances, did we put a termination protection or not?
Put that one.
We did.
I think so, yes.
We enabled that option.
I think we did, right?
No, we did, yeah.
So how do we know that is we did it? So let's go and instance state. I'm not going to stop or anything. I'm just going to straight away terminate it. Linux instance. But I cannot terminate it. You see here? It is not allowing me to terminate. This is the beauty of it, you know, because the thing is, you know, I have many times, you know, accidentally I selected like this and I was terminating this. I come here and terminate. You know, you just busy and you click on terminate. I'm sure when I do terminate, you know what is going to happen? It is not going to terminate these two Linux instances, but it is going to terminate this server. Look at what happens now, okay? I'm going to terminate. It is actually terminating on my server. This was the first server that we deployed, and it is terminating. But other two servers are not getting terminated because they have a termination protection. So I think it's a good idea, but I really want to terminate that server. I really want to terminate this server. What you should do is come to the instance settings. There is an option called change termination protection. It is currently enabled. So you say disable it. Now you purposefully went and disabled it. Okay, I want to terminate it. And now you come here and you can terminate that instance. See here, the termination is here. Okay. Guys, you guys have to practice all these things. Okay, when I say this, probably you might get it very fast. Oh, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. But when I ask you to do it, you won't be able to do it. So I would say you practice these things. Okay. So
I got a question here.
Yeah, one more. Hold on 1 second, Yogendra. How do we know the root password? So Linux question, very good question. So root password of a Linux server. Unfortunately, you will never be able to know the root password of a Linux instance. Amazon don't want to share that, and that is why they wanted you to use your key pair to connect to Linux instance. Now, is there any way? I don't know, Devinder. As I said, I'm not a Linux guru. Guys, if anybody can do a search and find out that, that will be great. It will be a knowledge for me also. But as far as I know, you never can understand the root password of a Linux instance from Amazon. You have to use the key pair and just log in like that. You never get that password. I don't know. Is there a way to get it? There may be. I'm not saying no, but I cannot give a correct answer. If somebody can research that for me and we can discuss in the next class, please. Okay. Karthik, why don't you do that? Right? You
so
there?
my guess is that this EC2-user.
I'll be asking that question. Okay, Karthik. Yeah. So sorry, Devinder. What's that?
So I'm thinking, I'm concocting. Then Amazon probably gives you this EC2-user with the root level access. You can do anything you want, correct?
Correct. EC2-user is equivalent to root. It is not the root. Actually, they are given root access. So you can, do some Google research. So much things. If you want an answer, I can definitely go and find out and come and talk about it. But then I can only talk that. So these questions come up. That's good. So everybody is listening. If you really want to know that, I would say please do a Google. You will quickly get that answer, guys. But I will try. Otherwise, Karthik is going to tell us the answer for that next class. All right, Yogender, go ahead.
Yeah, Deepu, I have a question related to private IP and static IP. Let's say, we said it won't change once we shut down the machine, but what if we terminate the instance? Will it be associated with any other instance, or what happens to the IPs once the instance is terminated?
Okay. Quickly, I'll say I don't want to go even a minute past 11 o'clock, guys. It's getting a little tired for me also. I have to get up every day morning at 6 o'clock. By the time I finish, it takes time. Anyway, so quickly, we'll answer. I know, Yogender, I'm not cutting you. We can definitely talk about this in detail. But we will when we talk about VPC, we will learn this more. But just for your understanding, in a class /24 IP subnet, you have how many IP address? You can have a 1 to 254, correct?
Okay.
Correct? That's IP addresses you can have in a /24. 10.10.1, 2, 3, 4, like that, right? So in Amazon DHCP or in DNS and Amazon DHCP environment, IP address from 1 to 4 is reserved. No instance will get IP address like, what is the private IP address here? I forgot here. Okay, what is the private IP address of this server? Look at this. 20.0.1. That is a subnet. You will learn these things later. What is that subnet? How does 20 coming is because the subnet is defined like that. Okay, there's a CIDR block. That's all you learn in that's, you don't get into these things right now, actually speaking, because when we learn VPC, that is where you're going to really understand this IP address and all. But anyway, since you asked this question, so in this subnet is actually, I will call it as 20.0.1.x. This is the subnet. Okay, the X can be from 1 to 254. But in Amazon, the first 4, the number from 1 to 4 is reserved for different Amazon related operations. In fact, the IP address 20.0.1.2 is your DHCP server. Okay, I'm just going little inside there. That is actually your DHCP. This is the server that gives you the IP address. So that is reserved. 3 is reserved for something. 4 is reserved for something. So you normally see IP addresses coming from 5 and above. Okay, so that is one thing. And now your question is, if I shut down this Linux instance, what happens to this IP address? When you shut down and not shut down, when you terminate, shut down means it will not. When you terminate this instance, this IP address will be released back to the DHCP server. Now, when you release a new instance, he may not get 94. DHCP server might give a 95 or 97, but eventually one server will get this back. There is no guarantee that you will get this back. Is that your question?
Yes, I think you answered it. I was just wondering, like, what happens to that IP, you know?
That IP will be released back to the DHCP. It is not going anywhere. It will be there.
Okay.
When you build more servers, DHCP will give it back to somebody at a later point. But when and all, we don't know. That is DHCP's algorithms decides when to give.
Okay.
Maybe that will be the last one given, you know, because it will give all other available IP address and it will hold, because, you know, many people may be using that IP address, you know, to avoid issues. There may be some kind of programming at the back and says, okay, you know what, that IP is terminated. Don't give it until you don't have anything left, you know. So it's a good practice, right? So it may keep that, but it is not going anywhere. It will be with the DHCP, and the DHCP will assign it back to a different instance at a later point. Now, when that will be, we cannot say.
Okay.
But Deepa, I have a quick question here. So, is it true that we lose data on instance volumes, like when we start and stop an instance?
You may not. It all depends on the way you configure your instance hard drive. We will talk about, I told you that answer, right? You know, there is a situation, but we'll talk about that when we learn storage.
Okay. I mean, I just want to know, like, what kind of data we will be losing if we lose.
So there are two types of hard disk. One is called as ephemeral storage, and another one is called EBS storage.
Okay.
If you are using ephemeral storage, when you shut down your instance, all the data in that storage will be wiped off. If you're using EBS, it will remain persistent. Is that good enough for now?
Yeah.
Now, what is ephemeral? What is EBS? Where it is coming? How it is coming? We'll learn in the storage class. Okay?
Okay.
Answer to your question is that, yeah, when your server is having an ephemeral storage, when you shut down, all the data, if you have a Windows server and your operating system is installed there, everything will be gone. If your Linux is installed there, everything will be gone. Whatever, there is nothing remains there. The entire data in that drive will be gone. It is a non-persistent drive. A non-persistent drive is a drive when you power off the computer, all the data in that drive will be erased. A persistent drive is a drive where when your computer is shut down, all the data in that drive will remain there or saved and stay there. So our computers are persistent drives, whereas your computer's memory is a non-persistent storage. What happens if anything in your memory will remain after you power off? What happens? If your computer is having a memory, right? All the data in the memory will be wiped off when you shut down, correct?
Correct.
So ephemeral storage is pretty much like a memory. So there may be some advantages for using ephemeral in certain scenarios. Maybe you getting what I'm coming to, right? It may be faster.
Yeah.
So that's the way you need to look at it.
I mean, do you select it at the time of instance creation?
No, there are certain scenarios. We will talk about that later. No, it is not. You know, there is no option to do that at the time of instance selection.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Yeah.
All right. So thanks, guys, and good night. There is no class tomorrow. There's no class tomorrow. We will be having class on Thursday next. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
All right. Thank you, guys, and good night.
Thank you, Deepu. Good night. Bye.
I'll send you the video hopefully by tomorrow. So the two videos send, you know, I think Sunu and who else? There is, I forgot his name. He left, I don't know. Okay. Whoever is new, please watch those videos. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.